Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if now is the appropriate time or not, but I would like to have more discussion around all of this. And I'd like to share a few of my experiences. And while I'm on the, have the mic, if there's anybody here from the department, I'm having a difficult time getting registered. So if I could visit with somebody, I am, right? That's what I need. And I just want to share with everybody, I did receive a prescription because of some of the issues that I'm going through. And I'm going to share my story with everybody as it pertains to this. So, Madam Chair, at some point in time, I would like to share a little more information on that. Thank you.
Well, Representative Hamilton, I think this is a great time. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, when we were initially talking about legalizing medical, quote, marijuana, unquote, I was a no vote. Through the eyes of a parent, I thought it was sending conflicting messages to our children. In fact, I sat my children down and asked them. My son, who was in 7th grade, I asked him, what do you think? At the time, he was in 7th grade, and he said, well, Dad, I think I could support anything that would make you feel better. And my daughter was in 4th grade, fired back without hesitation. She said, even if it turns Dad into a pothead, okay? And through the eyes of a parent, I said I could not support, quote, medical marijuana, unquote. But then an amazing thing happened. My cell phone rings, and her name is Angie. She says, Representative Hamilton, I'd like to talk to you about medical marijuana. I received your number from your cousin. I hope that's okay. And I said, well, sure, but you need to know that I am a no vote. She goes, I've heard that, but I also heard that you're reasonable. So we met in the office that I have at the State Office Building, and she comes walking in. It's her and her husband and their beautiful little girl who's passed on now, and that's struggling through this. As we sat down, they explained their story, how their daughter was suffering from drop seizures, and the only thing that they could find to help give them any type of relief was, quote, medical marijuana, unquote. And when I heard that story, I said, I would be willing to switch from a no to a yes on one condition. They said, what's that? And I said, if you change the terminology from marijuana to cannabis. And they said, why is that important? I said, because right now, as we're talking, I'm working with this young man who's addicted to heroin. And even though we have products derived from the same thing as heroin and cocaine, et cetera, we don't say medical heroin, we don't say medical cocaine. It sends conflicting messages, going back to my daughter's comment. I said, if we can change that in statute, you'll have my support. They said, done. They jumped up, they ran to former Representative Carly Moline. As you know, she was the author in the House. When she heard my side of the story, she immediately said, we'll change that definition in law. And then I went from being opposed to a strong supporter of this program. My next step was to understand, are we doing this correctly? So I've reached out to the department. I toured only one of the facilities, and I was very impressed with the professionalism around that. And I'm going to be touring the second facility as well. We're in the works of making that happen. I also suffer from some conditions that I am qualified for this program, right? 2 years ago, I tried to get enrolled, and unfortunately, my wife and I purchased a different house, and so my driver's license did not match up to where I lived. Once we were able to get all the data that I needed to subscribe or to register, my prescription elapsed because it took me a long time because we were in session, so I never got it filled. This time around, I'm sharing on social media again, and I'm to the point now where I need a laptop computer. And I don't have mine, mine's back at home, in order to get registered. But again, I want to share everybody my experience all the way along. I'm looking for some additional pain relief and muscle spasticity and et cetera. And so again, being someone that was absolutely opposed to this program, to being a very, very strong supporter, I see, after listening to people and advocates on being able to open this program up a little bit more, and that's why I carried these amendments in the House. And thank you to all our colleagues here for supporting me in the House on these, because one of the things that I'm running into too is that this program is very, very expensive. And so people who have limited means, they're automatically cut out of this. And that's why I've brought it along to where it would support the flower, the leaf, to help reduce the cost. Now, it doesn't mean you can light it up. you would still have to vape it. And so there's still very strict rules and regulations around this. But again, it's trying to it would be making this more accessible to the individuals who need it, with still the parameters around it, so it's not what some would consider the wild, wild west of marijuana legalization. And I think the state of Minnesota is doing two things right here. One, when it comes to the medicinal cannabis piece, we're taking a very systematic approach to bringing this to fruition. And I think since we have these guidelines in place, we can do this to where we can still have structure to it and get this to the individuals who actually need it. The other thing that we're doing very, very well is identifying that there is a difference between marijuana and between hemp. And we have the Department of Agriculture, who is doing a tremendous job here in Minnesota, that is regulating hemp production. And so I hope we realize or recognize that there is truly differences between the two. And the state of Minnesota, I feel, is doing a great job bringing these two products to the market with the safeguards that are in place. So again, Madam Chair, I hope that we have just a very thoughtful, open discussion around all this, and I'd stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Hamilton. I appreciate you sharing your personal experience, and I don't know if the department can help you get registered, but I sure hope they can. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hamilton. I probably wouldn't take quite as generous a perspective as you do in terms of what the state of Minnesota is doing. I think we've been slow to act. I think we should be more aggressive in terms of saying we need to learn more. We have 15,000 people on the medical marijuana program, medical cannabis, if you will, and they're on the roads driving, and we still have to do some work in terms of what does impaired driving look like. So I think we need to roll up our sleeves and be more ambitious in terms of learning more. There's nothing really that you said that I don't agree with. I think that we should do what we can to bring the cost of medical marijuana in Minnesota down into the ballpark where it is in other states. I think folks in Minnesota are getting no help at all regarding the cost of their marijuana for medical purposes, and it's 3, 4, 5 times as much as it could be. I think allowing the flower to be utilized and sold would be a big part of that. I think Senator Bigham's bill trying to say, let's make certain that we've got accurate labeling and we're protecting the consumer, I think that's important. There's no question this is a fluffy area. We just don't know. The whole issue of, because there's legislation that says that cannabinoids cannot be sold, well, we know that cannabidiol and THC are both cannabinoids. So there's work to be done. I wish that we would be more aggressive. I would like to see us schedule THC from a 1 to a 2 so that we can do more ambitious research. I really think that this is a time when we should strike while the iron's hot. So thank you, Representative Hamilton.
Thank you. And just to say that is in our bill, I believe. That's the rescheduling in addition. And Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to Representative Hamilton for sharing your story and your experience. I think that I came to the issue from a similar place. I had a lot of concerns when we first started talking about this bill. I'll just be perfectly honest. It might not be a popular thing to admit in this day and age, but I was very concerned for the very reasons that Representative Hamilton mentioned, that, you know, if we say that this is medicine, what does it say to our kids and those types of things. But talking to families who have been impacted before this bill was passed and since has been pretty dramatic. And one of the real motivators for me in trying to make this more accessible and affordable for the people who need it in this very highly regulated program, I mean, we do ask these families to jump through a lot of hoops that they're willing to jump through because they don't want to be buying weed on the street, and they don't want to be using the smoked form of weed, and they don't want to be, getting high off of it. And so this product that is being created helps families get the relief they need without sending Minnesotans into an illegal market that they don't want to be in. But at the same time, they don't have the time. When you have a progressive illness, you don't have the time to wait for the legislature to get their, to make a decision. We move a little slower than the rest of the world. And I'm glad that we're deliberate. And I'm glad that we are thoughtful. But one of the big challenges with this particular issue, I think Senator Jensen is exactly right, is there's a lot we don't know because we haven't been able to study it, because it's been illegal to study, because of the scheduling. And so we have relied on the little bit of information that we've been able to glean since this program started in Minnesota and the research that Minnesota has been doing and the information we've gotten from department, but also the information that we've gotten from patients. And it really does seem that we are on a path of giving relief to people in a number of different ways, from pain, from symptoms of illnesses, but also relief from having to depend on opioids. There's a lot of evidence that shows, I was in a task force meeting before session started, and there's a lot of evidence that's popping up that's showing that it's helping people not use opioids. And that is pretty significant when we look at other problems that we're trying to solve. So I do want to encourage us to be bold in this situation and understand that if we were to expand, as Representative Hamilton amended the bill, to include the flower, is that? I'm really not very cool about this stuff. That it is including it under this highly structured and regulated system and highly regulated utilization and access to patients. So to me, it would really go a long way to making sure that families can feel safe and secure getting the medicines that they need.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you very much. I think we can go on, move ahead.